Hello, my dears. This is your favorite purple lady, Amethyst Lady, back again with another Legends of Runeterra video. Today we are going to do a deep dive into the makings of my favorite deck to run, which I've called Bleed for Me. I want to rework this deck, so I've called upon Bedtimebuddy and Omegastryfe, both platinum ranked players, to help me out. Before we begin, if you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that thumbs up and smash the subscribe button for more awesome gaming content. The format was done so you feel like you're right there with us as we go through the cards in each video. Let's get right into it. So, on the flip side, and this is a card that I know I've heard so much, I've been given so much anguish about. Look at that smile. Look at
I need the
smile.
That
is a good smile. That is a good smile.
I need the Nina kicking Anna meme here. Get out.
That is a good smile.
The kindly Tavernkeeper.
He needed that smile.
This guy, he serves you booze.
That's the only redeeming quality.
That is the only redeeming
quality.
He
serves you hot soup when you're cold. Look at that owl. The owl is
carrot?
like, oh my goodness, the owl is like the supply.
It's a nice owl, but is it Faye from Fire Emblem Heroes?
No. Faye is adorable.
Exactly.
But alright, so
plus the owl like is about to smack the crap out of this dude in the back of the head.
He also looks like a schemer. Like he also looks like he just like
wheeling and dealing.
Yeah. Like he just you know what I mean? Like you just made him unfavorable something. Well, he just like
he wheeled and dealed his way into this deck. I used to have more of him in the deck. However, I've been given so much like anguish in having this in the deck that I took so many of them out. So now I only have one. Here's my I like this card. This card has helped me drag on the game since I do have late game champions. It's heal an ally, which can include your Nexus. So that's how, I'll drag it out sometimes. Or I can heal someone who's already taken damage, and then, they get more out of them. Like, if I have one of those that's like deal 2 to the Nexus, and then they're about to die, I'm like, all right, here's Mr. Tavernkeeper. He's going to heal you 3. Keep the party going. We got endless booze. But on the flip side, I will say that at turn 3, I have found that his stat line has made it kind of difficult to a degree. Because I do sometimes feel that, man, I could put something down better. And I might be able to outright kill this card or make a bigger impact. So I do see that, but I guess it's just hard for me to get past the smile and the booze. So
do we got to run the sort back to turn 3 drop
no.
champions?
I don't think so. So let me interject, and let's play on curve. You drop the 0-3 turn 1, turn 2. You drop the 2-2 deal 1 damage. You got a 5-2. You got a 2-2. Ideal scenario is they can't deal with that, and so you're going in, you're dealing damage, and then turn 3 you drop Tavernkeeper and you heal your 5-2 into your 5-3
by 1.
And so you're like, cool. That's what I got. So that's the best opening hand that you can have 1 through 3. Like, and then obviously, and I think this game has done such a great job with applying value to every card, and anyone can make a situational case for a card why you should run something. You can make a case of why you would have played him and stayed alive by 1 HP and turned the game around and blah, blah, blah. Right. There's always those situations. And the kind of argument is the opportunity cost in terms of what could you have had in his place, as we just established that turn 3 is so important in this game. What could you have had in turn 3 that would have replaced them in that exact scenario where you have the 5-2 the 2/2, and instead of the Tavernkeeper that would have healed that 5/2 into a 5/3, what could you have dropped instead of a 2/3 body? And I think that the turn 3 drops are so impactful, from champions to followers to spells, as we just covered. They're just so strong that you can have a 5/2 challenging somebody who's not even attacking him and kill a unit, a 4/4 unit Shadow Isles ideal starting hand, and kill that person, Whirling Duel. And so if you trade in, let's say that starting hand, a 3/2 with a 4/4 in a 1/1 starting hand for the Shadow Isles, you would still be able to trade your 5/2 into the 3/2. Your 2/2 would be being blocked by the 4/4, but your 5/2 with the Whirling Death would kill the 4/4 and also trade equally into the 3/2 with the 5/2, leaving your 2/2 to not do damage but staying alive, and thus creating field advantage for you. Whereas the opponent now has to make a move to start trying to get gain on you. This card is fine. It's not strong. It is not extremely weak. It is just sort of weak.
Yeah.
And in the drop that it's in with the 3-drop, there are just too many more stronger cards that makes this card look that much weaker.
I would love a turn 2/2 heal 2.
Yeah, I would prefer a turn. I would a turn 2/2 heal 2. I would prefer that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Than a turn 3/2/3 heal 3. It's just
The competition is just way too steep, and you're competing against turn 3 2/4 challenger.
Yeah.
Clear as day. What's better? You're competing against a turn 3 2/4 gains 1+0 for each ephemeral that attacks along with it.
Yeah.
Late game presence still has the early game stat line of the 2/4. Hell, I would take a 2/4 with no effect, because having 4 health is so powerful.
Yeah.
Give me a raw 2/4 with no effect. I might still pick that over this 2/3. I think that in this game, sometimes you win and lose by very slim margins.
Yeah.
And that is the best argument for this card, is that you may be mitigating some of that difference when it comes to winning and losing, staying alive by 1 health, or needing one more turn to get that key card that you need to push for your win condition. However, you have to weigh that against when turn 3 comes and you have this card in your hand. How much control can you take of the game? How much presence can you take on the board to be able to force your opponent to do something before you do something? In this game, being the person that goes second is like so much better than being the person that goes first. This is why when you play your Judgment, and your opponent had just summoned a Rasa or something husky, and now you know they can't deny your Judgment, so you play with freedom and you play your Judgment because you went second. Or you play your Rasa at the end of the turn to kill 2 people, instead of like playing your Rasa at the beginning of the turn and being like, I'm going to pick up 2, kill one of my guys, pick up 2 so I can play Rasa. They might hit you with a deny or any type of thing, right? Or find a way to play around it, or find a way to summon something, Vile Feast, summon an extra 1/1. Now the Rasa didn't hit who you wanted it to hit. Stupid stuff like that. So going second, unless you're bursting, it tends to be a lot better in this game. So when you have the board and you can force your opponent to play something first, it goes back to those culling strikes. You force your opponent to have to come up to your level first, so now you can culling strike reactively and get their guy the heck out of there. Is a lot better than attacking or trying to target the guy in the back with your culling strike, not knowing if they're going to be able to move outside of the range of your culling strike or find a way to negate it. So this guy does none of that. He doesn't kill. He doesn't change the board. He doesn't do anything. All he does is delay a little bit of time. Now, if you had an early game 2/5 that's going to trade like 3 times the dragon.
But he's also a turn 3.
So yeah, exactly.
So now you're like
you're competing on the same turn. You're gonna, if you have them both in your hand, you're gonna play the dragon.
The dragon. Every time.
And then on turn 4, if you play him, you hang over 1 mana. you probably would have preferred to have either something on curve or something more impactful
You
for
would
turn
have a
4.
turn 4, yeah.
No, he. I can't, off the top of my head, I can't think of where he has a legitimate home. Right off the top of my head, just fresh, without really digging and trying to really figure this thing out. Right now in this game, having 4 health is plenty strong enough.
Alright.
And to get back to 4 health, in this case, by this point in the game, you wouldn't have anyone on the board that has 4 health. If it's late game, you may be able to send someone back to 4 and above.
Right.
But why not just be the person that drops someone that has 4 health? Or drop someone that can deal with someone that has 4 health.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, I agree. And you can cut this part out if you want. We can either filter through turn 3's units to see what the options are. But I think that even just considering the turn 3 5/4 that can't block, but think about the impact.
You're going to attack with them right away.
Has the board. Like when my opponent drops a 5/4 on turn 3, I'm like, I only got 20 HP.
It's a phenomenal stat line.
His stat line is 25% of my HP. Like, he represents so much damage. And sure, he can't block, but he also has 4 HP, which means that he also doesn't die easily. He also trades favorably against any turns 3 or lower, whether it's a 2/5, whether it's a 3/2, or whatever the case may be. You can summon a Zed, and I can summon a 5/4, and you can't block me. You can summon whatever the case. Any other champions on turn 3 that I drop my turn 3, you drop theirs, you won't be able to block me. You either take the 5, or you block with a 2/2 or a 2/3 or whatever the case may be, and my guy's still alive. And now you still have to expense an additional card or an additional block to deal with my guy. And I think that's the thing that we're arguing, is that even someone like that can't block would have more impact on curve than this guy.
If you get turn 3 first, you drop them, you attack, what they gonna do?
They're gonna take it. They're gonna take it.
Yeah.
They're gonna take it.
If they get turn 3 first, they do whatever they do on turn 3. They drop their 2/4, whatever the heck. You drop your guy at the end of the turn. What they gonna do on turn 4 when the turn starts?
They're gonna take it.
They gonna take 5 damage.
And even if they frostbite, I don't know what, I don't even know. They can't. I
block them with a 1/1.
I don't know. Will I only block them with a 1/1?
Over 1.
Over. I don't know.
Massive value.
You know what I mean? Like
5, 6, 7, 8, 7 damage.
And that's the sort of like board presence that with a mid-range deck, you want to have people that makes your opponents react to you.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
I have a 5/4. He's gonna murk you. He's gonna deal so much damage that you either have to block him, you're gonna eat it, but you don't want to eat it twice.
Yeah.
And so like if you get it from 20 to 15, you don't want to go from 15 to 10 with the same dude.
God forbid I'll take card it.
God forbid you know what I mean? Like he's an 8/5 because you blocked him with a 3/3. You ate the damage. Now my guy's a 5/2. I attack again. He's an 8/5. What are you gonna do with an 8/5?
And I might burst you +3 and over 1.
You either better have a Will of Ionia, and if you're not playing Ionia decks, you're hopefully waiting for a turn 7 win.
Please play a turn 4 Will of Ionia into my 3-drop.
I'll play him again. Yeah.
Please do that.
Because
I will either play him again or celebrate, because now you can't. Now I have less chance of encountering a Will of Ionia when I'm pushing for a Wicked Edition with my Darius.
Exactly.
Nice.
And he's such a great, like, absorbent of those cards, Will of Ionias, or whatever the case. It's like, okay, cool. I'm gonna summon my Vladimir on turn 5, 2 turns later, and you don't have your Will of Ionia anymore. So, and he just doesn't draw any of that. Nobody's gonna Will of Ionia this guy, Tempest this guy,
Culling
Strike this guy. Like he doesn't draw removal. He doesn't impact the board.
He has the same board presence as your 2-drop 2/3 with a weaker effect.
Right, exactly.
All right. Well, I guess the smile and the promise of hot soup didn't do it. So this will probably be a card we end up getting rid of. But next card, Avarosan Hearthguard. I like this guy's stats. I like the fact that when you do drop him, he grants allies in your deck 1/1. I really like that. You know, that can be the difference of surviving different things. You know, making, even if, let's say I get one of those unscarred Reavers like super late, then I mean, now she comes out, she's able to actually attack even if it's just for one. Like, I enjoy having this guy in the deck. I haven't really had any bad issues with him.
He's one of those guys, right, that you're never going to have a negative experience with.
Right.
He's a 5/5 on 5, great to drop on curve, has a great impact on your deck.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know if he has a home in this deck.
I would agree.
I can see that, and you know what? I think part of that was I had so much fun playing him. I had a Freljord Ionia deck. And I was like, I had so much fun playing this guy.
Great card.
And I was like, I can't let him go.
Yeah.
But for the sake of this deck, I could see how it would be more beneficial.
Because you try to kind of streamline the deck, and sometimes as you get closer to a complete deck, it becomes harder to pull out high value cards like this.
Yeah.
And the thing is that it's synergy over individual strength.
Right.
And this is a great card in any deck. If you have 39 cards and you feel like your deck is complete, you throw one of him in.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's a great card. Like, his effect is great, his stat line's great.
Yeah.
So sorry to interject. I think there's two things that I think of is the fact that you want to make this deck mid-range, whereas the opponent has to react to the drop on curve, but the drop on curve is usually stronger than what they have because they're playing synergistic cards with their deck, whether it's a turn 4, 2/3 Kinku elusive, and you drop a 5/5 turn 4, they drop a 2/3, you drop a 5. There's a big difference.
Yeah.
And with this guy, so there's less argument because he's already a 5/5 turn 5. So that's good. I think because of the fact that you want to drop cards that are more synergistic and more impactful. So he's right around the middle in terms of level of impact. And so now we're talking about marginal differences between other 5 drops and him.
Your late game's still going to be powerful.
And the immediate thing that I think of is an extra Vladimir, who's also a 5/5 turn 5.
Yes.
Who synergizes with your deck, obviously.
But she's maxed out on champs. So
And we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
And we also talk about the fact that he could turn into a 6/6 with regeneration and also deal extra damage to the enemy's HP and empower up your units and all those extra effects that Vladimir has with this deck specifically.
Right.
He's competing with that slot with either adding an extra Vlad or having a one of this, and that's just a clear case of what you would do, and that's adding an extra Vlad.
Yeah. So I think that in closing, he's on the cutting room floor in favor of adding a third of something else, or some other change that would need to be made to kind of make the deck whole. Not taking anything away from the card, great card, but I just don't know if he's doing all of what you need for this here. Not to mention, your late game is still going to be strong.
Yeah.
And you have a lot of high value early game cards, in which are still going to be strong without his effect all throughout the game, regardless of when you drop him. So he's going to give you value regardless, but it may be kind of marginal in the bigger picture, in the grand scheme of things.
Okay.
If you were always buffing stuff +1/+1 throughout the duration of the game,
Right.
or say like earlier we talked about the spell that you duplicate your guys and you give all of them with the same name +1/+1, then you add this on top of it, or maybe you're doing a Miss Reaver thing or Miss Raven or whatever it's called, and they keep on getting stronger and stronger and stronger, and everything you do is about making that Miss Raven stronger. And then when you drop it, it's like a 9/9 or a 10/10, or you use those who endure or something like that, and
they don't get affected by it.
Yeah. Then I'd say, right. But this deck is featuring the Scar Mothers and the Brad Pitt guy. So he's not adding too much to that strategy that you want to impose upon your opponent.
Okay.
Especially at the 5 slot where you also have other cards that are pretty good, specifically your champion in Vladimir.
That's fair. All right. Yeah, I did have him as a 1-of, so that's good stuff.
Yeah.
All right. And this is another one of those cards that I kept in just to kind of deal with elusive.
Tucked in there. They call it when you tuck a card into your deck.
The Tavernkeeper Gloryseeker. All right. So here's my thinking behind it. For one, I hate units that can't block. I absolutely despise it. But I also understand that Challenger is one of those great ways you can deal with elusives. Now, if they have a billion elusives in the deck, then yeah, it might not work. But at least in early game, you see one of these and you're like, oh snap. One of my people at least is probably going to die. And, having that intimidation is nice. Now, granted, I don't like the fact that, it only has 1 for its defensive stat, but I love the fact that it has 5 for its stacking stack. So, it's one of those things where I was very unsure, and typically with the ones that I'm unsure of, I'll just put 1 in. So that's my thought behind it. I mainly wanted to deal with elusives and pull at least one of those damned elusives and kill it. So, what are your thoughts?
So I think this is an interesting spot to consider. The reason why we have this Tavernkeeper Gloryseeker is because we're talking about being able to trade into either an elusive or trade into a higher value target, whether it's a champion like a Zed, a Jinx, a Heimerdinger, an Ezreal,
a Teemo,
a Yasuo, a Ashe. Like, there's a lot of units, a lot of champions, a Garen. There's a lot of units, champion units, that this card would be able to trade favorably in. And then now there's the downside, where it's like this card dies, like Julio said before, almost by mistake. Whether it's by Whispering Whale, or I forget the name of the card. Avalanche, the Vile Feast.
The Vile Feast, yeah.
There's so many cards that deal 1 damage, even when you're summoning this card at the end of the opponent's turn, or whenever it's like a favorable time for you to summon the card, it could die very easily. I think the 5 damage is great, and I think the competitor to this position, in my opinion, is the turn 2 3/2 Wolf that gives the opponent a 1/1 hair. Because of the fact that it has that 2 HP, it doesn't die to the Vile Feast or the Death Lotus or the Blade's Edge. It doesn't die to that. So, and then if you're talking about who are your primary targets to challenge, and if it's elusives, then I think the 3/2 is more versatile because it may not die as easily, and it also trades into a lot of the champions that you're scared of. Heimerdinger, Ezreal, Yasuo, Jinx, Zed, a lot of those units, the 3/2 trades well into. I'm not sold on this, even as a 1-drop.
Or 1-of.
One of. I'm sorry. I would almost say it depends on what your goal is. And depending on that, the 3/2 Wolf might be a better turn 2, 3/2 challenger.
I think that a concern, also something that I mentioned while you were upstairs, is that the elusive decks play twin disciplines. So if you're targeting a Green Glade duo and then you pull it with this card, and they play Twin Disciplines, it's not enough. You'll still die. But if you're pulling the Green Glade Duo with the Wolf, and then they play Twin Disciplines, then they'll be able to survive the assault from the Wolf because they will go up to four health. The Wolf only has 3 attack. So not to mention, if we're talking about getting some of those +3/+0 burst overwhelms in the deck, then this 5-drop actually becomes great. The value carries into the later game because you'll be able to pull, say, like an Evolved Shen or a Hecarim or something and surprise them with being able to actually kill that unit or push for an actual victory when you challenge their 1/1 and give your 5 attack 2-drop an additional 3 attack plus overwhelm using just spillover mana that you had hanging around in the tuck. So I don't like that this card can die by a sneeze. It can get hit by a avalanche or Withering Wail or
a Blade's Edge of the opponent.
Yeah, Death Lotus, Vile Feast. There's a whole bunch of things that could just put this card away. But at the same time, how unrealistic is it that on turn 2 we're actually able to grab something, right? So you start thinking about mana distribution. On turn 1, you drop your 1-drops if you have them. On turn 2, you drop your 2-drops or you don't have them. If you drop this and your opponent's stashing mana, you're going to push 2 to their face. If they decide to kill it, that's one less thing that's going to be able to kill your actual win conditions later on, assuming that they didn't put Blade's Edge in their deck specifically to kill Triferian Gloryseekers. Not to mention people don't really run Blade's Edge too much anyway.
Right.
They're not going to hit it with Withering Wail. They would only hit it with Withering Wail if they're behind, they need to heal, they're trying to swing the whole board, and this is kind of hanging around in the later game. You wouldn't expect this card to kind of hang around for multiple turns. This is the kind of card that you drop and you wanted to get its job done right away.
Yeah.
So I think that this card may have a home in your deck, but the challenge is the fact that you already have minions that by the time you start getting to like turns 3 and 4 may have comparable stats due to the synergies in your deck. The only thing that they'd be missing is the challenger. So how important is it for you to have that surprise challenger in your deck? And that's why you end up in a situation where you have a one of her in your deck. So the question is, does your deck struggle in the early game to get to that Teemo? Does your deck struggle to get to that Ezreal, to get to that Lucian, to get to all of those things? And when you think about that, that's when you start going back to the Wolf, because the elusive deck isn't going to run any of those. But the most common deck that you will fight against is the elusive deck. If they only have the 1/1 on the board because they powered someone up, you might not even play this. You're going to wait until they play their Shadow Seeker. And then after they play their Shadow Seeker, do you want to trade her for a Shadow Seeker? Or are you going to try to wait until they get like the Lifeblood guy or something? You know what I'm saying? So I think she has value naturally because it's a useful card. It'll be a very hard card to remove, but it's definitely not a 3 of. Like for sure, not a 3 of. And 2 is pushing it, so I think I'm somewhere between 1 and 0. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I would say, depending on who you're intending on this card trading into more often. Yeah. I think that's when we have to evaluate the differences between this and the Wolf. If it's between like this trading into the 2/2 Shadow Seeker, then this card is not going to be that effective because that card already drew another card. They're going to be having card advantage normally, just naturally, because of that card's effect, that turn 3 effect versus this card.
But you have to take the Twin Disciplines into account.
You do, and then you start thinking about the upside of this card that could trade into a 4-cost card or a 5-cost card or a 6-cost card, a 6/5 or whatever the case may be.
And even some of those with plus Twin Disciplines would still take the fall to this card.
and so I think this card has higher upside
in this particular deck.
In this particular deck than the 3/2. My biggest challenge with this card, with this deck, is that once you start pairing this card with either Vladimir's that deal 1 damage to all of your attacking units, or transfusions where you want to deal 1 damage or blood for blood where you want to deal 1 damage to your own units. So there's a lot of cards where you want to deal a lot, like or even Death Lotus, where you want to deal 1 damage to your own units. And that is when this card starts becoming
a little heavier
and cumbersome.
Yeah, so
because of the fact, and the 3/2 looks really good because you can damage the 3/2/1 and give your other unit +2/+2, and your 3/2 is still killing whoever you were targeting to kill.
But now you're working to get the 5/1. Now you're spending combo to get the 5/1.
But I'm saying like there's like 7 or 5 to 7 cards in this deck that you would use on your own volition to deal 1 damage to your own units, and then this card would just be part of the just receiving the damage naturally.
It's nice to have.
And so like that's where I would think like Vladimir would kill this card.
You wouldn't attack with it with Vladimir.
And you also wouldn't use Death Lotus. You also wouldn't use Avalanche when it was on the board.
Yeah.
So like, I feel like there's just certain cards that this card would prohibit you from using together with.
Well, that would make it so that it's definitely not even a 2 of.
Right. It might be a 1 of. Exactly.
It might be a 1 of. It might be a legitimate 1 of.
Right.
Okay. All right.
So we'll come back later if we find ourselves with open slots. We might swap this out for 2 wolves, or if we end up breaking even and staying at 40 or 39 or whatever the case is, we might just leave her at 1 of.
Yeah.
If we need to free up a space for something that has more synergy with the deck, this might be something that we hit first.
That's fair. All right. Okay. Good stuff. Good stuff. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you watch the next video in this series and join in the discussion by leaving a comment below. Like, subscribe, and take care, my dears. Bye.